Welcome back to A Kitsune's Tale. Please like, comment, and subscribe for future content. Now back to the story.
Chapter 15. Farewell. I returned home around 10 that evening, leaving Faishan, Pasha, and Shero to work on the designs of the statues that would flank access to each portal. Tomorrow, we planned to breach the veil to the new world in hopes of finding a safe haven for everyone rather than trying to reintegrate them into a changed human society where they would possibly be hunted and studied. It was the popular consensus that we would not be welcomed openly into a growing population plagued by suspicion, hate, and fear. There were, of course, other realms still undiscovered that might hold the key to our future, should this one fail to be the solution we were looking for. "Kara, would you please come in here?" I turned from my intended course to my room and took up a place in the leather recliner across from the couch where my mother waited. I pulled my legs up into the chair in anticipation of a long lecture on my tardiness. "Would you care to tell me where you have been?" The question was expected given the late hour and the fact I had forgotten to leave a note explaining where I was and when I would be back. I went for a walk up on the parkway with a friend. My mother eyed me thoughtfully before inquiring further. "I am happy you are making friends at last, but you need to let me know where you are going. I came home expecting you to be here, or at least a note telling me where you had gone." She grabbed an open envelope and tossed it to me. "This was in the mail for you. Do you care to tell me where you got this coin?" My mother rolled the gold coin in question over the back of her fingers before tossing it to me. I pulled out the letter and read it carefully. It was a response to my query about the origin of the coin I had sent to be examined and appraised. The letter told me much the same as the coin collector had. What I had not expected was the offer to purchase the coin for a sizable amount. I had to reread the last paragraph over again to make sure I had read it right the first time. At the bottom was also a contact number for a curator who wanted to meet with me about the purchase of the coin. I refolded the letter and placed it back in the envelope, unsure how to answer the question. I had not considered how I would explain to my mother where the coin had come from when I had submitted it to the museum. I examined the coin, avoiding my mother's question, unsure how to answer. "I got it from grandmother before she died," I blurted, unable to think of a better response. "Your grandmother's coins are in a safe deposit box. Try again." I stared openly at my mother in shock. My grandmother had more coins hidden away? "Why don't you tell me who gave you that coin instead of trying to lie to me about it?" I sat back in my chair with a sigh. No matter how I thought about it, I could think of no way out of answering the question satisfactorily enough. My grandfather gave it to me when I went to visit him. Mr. Sebastian was sent to bring me to him when he discovered where I was. My mother nodded, understanding. "I know very little about your grandmother's past, and even less about your father's past beyond what he would tell me. But I do know the only person who would have such a coin would be your grandfather. So now I have two questions. Where were you since you were obviously not at this summer camp, and how do you know this person was your grandfather?" "I can't tell you where I was," I remarked. "I can tell you I know he is my grandfather because he had the exact match to grandmother's bracelet. He told me it was a wedding gift, like a wedding band except worn on the wrist." "Well, until you can tell me where you were, you are grounded. You are not allowed to go anywhere without my approval unless you can tell me where you were." My mother held out her hand, suggesting I give her the letter back. "I took the liberty of calling Mr. Santos about your coin. He should be here Monday afternoon to talk about buying it along with any other coins you might have." My mother got up and left without saying another word. I took the opportunity to go up to my room and closed and locked the door behind me. I leaned against the door and slid to the floor where I buried my face in my hands, crying softly. I could not believe how my life had turned for the worse. I was expected at the cave after school, and now I did not know how I would be able to help them short of running away from home. Making up my mind, I got up from my place on the floor and began packing my clothes in a large duffel bag my mother had bought for me when we had gone to Canada for spring break 2 years ago. It did not take as long to pack as I expected, with all my clothes fitting easily in the bag along with a few pictures and my bath amenities. The question as to where I would go was easily answered since I was obviously welcome to return at any time. I looked around my room one last time to ensure I was not forgetting anything before sitting down at my desk to write a letter to my mother explaining where I was going. I did not expect my mother to believe I was returning to another world, so instead I simply told her I was going to live with Sero. I planned to go to school in the morning as expected and return home before my mother to get my things and leave. Once done, I lay on my bed staring up at the ceiling, thinking how I would live in my new world without any obvious skills. I had the coins that Kano and Siro had given me, but without a way to earn more, those would be gone inside of a year at the rate I had spent them before coming home. I lay awake thinking about what I would do until sleep finally claimed me. I woke to the sound of my mother knocking on my door. This time she did not try to open the door but instead went back downstairs without saying anything. I had not bothered to change clothes the night before, so I decided to wear the same clothes except for changing my shirt before heading down with my book bag in hand. I did not bother stopping for breakfast and headed out the door without as much as a farewell. My day at school went by slower than usual. When the lunch bell rang, I decided to skip the rest of the day and leave with the rest of the seniors. Many of the seniors had opted for early release from school rather than go the whole day in hopes of graduating early, so slipping out unnoticed by the faculty was a simple matter. I had barely gotten out the front doors when I was intercepted by Zedra and her friends. "Going to see your boyfriend?" Zedra moved to block my path, effectively moving to intercept me each time I tried to go around. "I told you I would get you back for making me go to summer school." Zedra suddenly lashed out, pushing me onto the ground. "So, are you going to do my homework this year, or am I going to have to put you in your place?" I rolled onto my hands and knees and began to get up, dusting off the dirt on my hands. "I am not going to fight you, Zedra, and no, I am not going to do your homework." No sooner than I was back on my feet than Zedra slapped me hard across the face, cursing me. "You will do what I tell you." Again, another slap. This time I snapped my head back around angrily. "What do you think you're going to do? Nothing. That's what you're going to do." I backed down, knowing I could not fight without causing more trouble than I already had. Instead, I turned to walk back to the school. I had barely taken a step when Zedra seized me by my hair, pulling me back. "I'm not done with you." Zedra pulled hard enough to throw me off balance and sent me sprawling on the ground once again. "I followed you yesterday. I know about your pets up on the parkway," she said, leaning over me. "Well, I have taken care of them. My brother and I called the park rangers about them. I would expect them to be out hunting those cats right now." I could not believe what I was hearing. The rangers would of course investigate a report of lions on the parkway since there were not supposed to be any. I pushed Zedra away and attempted to scramble to my feet only to be pushed back down by Carol in defense of her friend. Each time I tried to get up or crawl away, one of the three girls would knock me back down. "Let me up! You do not know what you have done!" I yelled. In a desperate move, I tried to rush Zedra since she was the smallest of the three. It was enough to give me the room needed to get to my feet and start running. The moment I hit the trail, I started to pick up speed while mentally calling out a warning to Fei Shan. I was surprised he was able to hear me with his diminished abilities. He had, after all, sent Shero to get me yesterday rather than calling to me as I had just done. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life, leaving the trail and cutting across the woods in a straight line for the cave where my friends waited. I crossed the street, barely missing running into a black Mustang as it came roaring past. The screeching of tires on pavement barely registered as I dove back into the tree line. I came up on the trail at the same time a park ranger passed on his four-wheeler. The ranger spotted me as he passed and applied the brakes, yelling to get my attention. I skidded to a halt, sending me sliding down on my butt. "Are you okay?" I dusted the mud and leaves off my pants as I stood up. "I'm fine. I was just out exploring." The ranger turned off his four-wheeler and climbed off. "You are not supposed to be here. We got reports of dangerous animals out there. The park is closed for safety reasons until we catch them." I jumped at the sound of gunfire coming in the direction of the cave. The rangers had obviously spotted one of the Lowenfrau out on patrol. A second later, I heard a park ranger on the radio requesting an ambulance. Apparently, one of the rangers had been badly injured in the altercation. I took the opportunity to run down through the woods while the he turned his head to listen. "Hey, come back here! We have a teenage girl in the woods! Watch your fire!" I could hear the ranger start his four-wheeler back up, still shouting for me to come back. I came upon the mouth of the cave to find Pasha struggling to hold back an enraged Muesh. "Let me go!" she roared in frustration as she attempted to break through Pasha's wall of air. In the distance, I caught a glimpse of Corsa dragging a yowling Shiroli back toward the cave. I searched frantically for Shirohi and Sarofa among the chaos of screams and gunfire. Each gunshot was followed by a human scream to be silenced unnaturally. It was obvious the missing Lowenfrau were systematically dispatching any intended threat. All the gathered Lowenfrau had abandoned their lion forms in favor of their accustomed biped ones, and I assumed my two missing companions had done the same. Another gunshot rang out, followed by a roar of pain and a shout from one of the rangers. I turned back into the underbrush in search of Shirohi and Sarofa, hoping I would not be too late to save them. It was not difficult to find Sarofa standing over a kneeling Shirohi who was holding a clawed hand over her left side. Not far away was the still body of a ranger, his head turned at an impossible angle. "Sarofa! Get Shirohi back to the cave!" In the distance, I could hear sirens announcing the arrival of reinforcements. "Hear those sounds? That is the sound of more human fighters coming." I was relieved when Sarofa reluctantly helped her leader to her feet and made their way back toward the cave. The moment they started moving, I caught sight of a ranger taking aim with his rifle. I was about to act when the ranger collapsed under his own weight, his rifle firing wildly into the air. Seconds later, Shiro rushed from cover to aid the two Lowenfrau. I fell in behind, using my power to cover our trail in a thick screen of fog. In the distance, I could hear the shouts of men as they searched futilely for me and my party. The moment we were all safely inside, I ordered the entrance of the cave closed while I went to attend to my injured friends. Pasha remained behind to close the cave entrance, which came crashing down as she blasted the stone ceiling with a concentrated stream of air and moisture. I found Corsa and Shero tending to a wound to Sherali's shoulder, while Sherohai kept batting away Sarofa's attempts to inspect her flank. I made my way over to an irritated Shirohi, pressing hard on the offending injury. "Let me take a look at it. The bullet could still be in there." "It be scratch. I be fine," protested Sherohai. I dismissed her objections and pulled at her arm until the Lowenfrau relented. I placed my hand over the oozing hole. A quick inspection revealed that the wound was, in fact, not life-threatening, and the bullet had exited out the back, just missing her hip. To my relief, the wound was easy to heal, and so I set about the task. Once finished, I removed my hand to reveal a fresh white scar marking where the hole once was. "Your hip will be stiff for a while, but you will be okay." "What happened?" "Humans come. We ignore until Shiroli hurt by man-thunder." Shirohi watched where Shiro joined by Fei Shan attended to Shiroli. "We kill 3 before you come. Why they hunt us?" I shook my head regretfully. "I was followed here yesterday by a girl from school who hates me. She saw me with Shiroli and told the rangers that there were lions here in the mountain where there should not be any." The snarl in Shirohi's voice was plainly evident when she turned back to me. "We kill you, enemy?" "I will take care of her," I responded, watching Fei Shan approach. The old Kitsune let out a sigh, glancing over his shoulder. "Shiroli will be fine. The object hit her shoulder, splintering the bone. I was able to mend most of it, but the rest will have to heal on its own. Now what?" I observed the 4 statues standing guard over the places designated for the different veils. The 2 for the cave entrance were yet constructed, and with the collapse of the cave entrance, I saw no need for them. We will leave tonight. For now, I must return home to gather up some things I want to take with me. I will not be returning to the human world after this. I closed my eyes, focusing on the image of my house, planning to open a gateway to it. There was no other way out of the cave other than by stepping through space and time. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in my front yard next to an intrusive Shiro. "How did you follow me here?" Shiro smiled, his white canines mischievously. "I touched you the moment I felt your bridge open. I heard you tell Shirohi you would deal with this Zedra, and I did not want to miss the fun." I froze as soon as I saw my mother standing in the kitchen washing dishes. I knew she had gone to work and had thought she would not be back for several hours yet. "What are you doing home, Mom?" My mother wiped her hands dry on her towel before tossing it back down on the counter. "I should be asking you the same question. I found your letter this morning after you left, so I decided to take the day off to talk to you." "You had no right going into my room, Mom." I could not believe my mother had betrayed me in such a way. My mother stormed out of the kitchen, snatching me by the arm and leading me to a chair at the dinner table. "I have every right. Now tell your friend he has to go home." Shiro did not respond to the order to leave. Instead, he stood with his arms crossed defensively. I followed Shiro's lead, drawing strength from him to face my mom. "This is my mother, Anne," I said to Shiro. "And no, I will not tell him to leave. I came home to get my stuff before I go." Anne looked from me to Shiro and back again. "You are not going anywhere. If you leave this house, I will call the police to have you picked up." I slammed my hands onto the table, leaving behind a bloody palm print my mother noticed for the first time. "What happened to you?" my mother asked, instantly concerned. I pushed off from the table, heading for my room to get my bag. "You would not believe me if I told you, so why bother?" I snatched my bag and headed back downstairs where my mother was on the phone with the police. "Call them all you want. They're busy up on the parkway and will not come." I was about to open the door when Shiro leaned over and whispered in my ear, "Watch your temper. You are losing control." I ignored him as I jerked the door open without turning the knob. I was barely aware of the splintering doorframe as I caught sight of Zedra leaning against the black Mustang from earlier. Beside her stood the always-present Carol and Denise, along with her brother standing behind the car by the driver's door. Before me stood the focus of all my rage. I dropped my bag and began to close the distance to the focus of my rage. My vision narrowed the closer I got until nothing existed but the skinny girl. I was mere feet from my prey when Shiro stepped between us, blocking my view. "Calm down," he growled, just loud enough for me to hear. "You are letting your emotions rule you, Lady Kara. You may do something you will regret if you confront her while hunting." I struggled to slow my breathing until the world around me began to come back into focus. So once I had regained my senses, I turned to retrieve my bag. I had barely gotten a step away when I heard Zedra goading me on. "So how are your pets now? We heard the gunshots up on the parkway." Before anyone could react, Zedra struggled against the iron grip of an enraged Kitsune. I held the squirming girl off the ground as she peered into my wild eyes. "Because of you, 3 park rangers are dead and my friends were hurt." The urge to crush her throat was nearly overwhelming. I watched in satisfaction as blood started to trickle down from where my claws had punctured the skin. "I should kill you for what you have done, but I am going to let you live to remember." Before Zedra passed out from lack of air, I slammed her against the side of the Mustang. On the other side of the car stood her brother, frozen in place with fear in face of a very protective white Kitsune. I glanced around in search of the other 2 girls to discover both had fled, leaving their leader to her fate. I glanced down at the rumpled heap of a coughing and gasping Zedra. Seeing no other threat, I knelt and grabbed the girl's jaw in my clawed hand. "Just remember who did this to you and why," I whispered. Zedra struggled to get free as I dug 3 claws into the side of her cheek and dragged it down slowly, cutting open the side of her face. Satisfied there would be 3 long scars left behind from the injury, I released a screaming Zedra. I turned to see my mother standing on the porch with her hand over her mouth in shock. I could make out the tears streaming down my mother's face as I climbed the steps. This is why I must leave. This is the legacy left behind by both my grandmother and father. I leaned close enough to place my cheek against my mother's and whispered in her ear, "I love you, Mom. I will miss you." I slowly stepped back and turned to retrieve my bag. Shiro was at my side moments later, and we simply vanished, leaving everything I had ever known and loved behind.
We hope you enjoyed the story so far. Please stay tuned for more.